Sure. All right. Kevin Whitney. Dan Haynes. Emma Hans is not here. Paul Slowey. Bo is not here. Chuck Feisley.
Here.
Paul Dries is not here. Lori Comfort. Wendy Miller.
Here.
Amy Bertini.
Here.
Ann Swisher.
Here. Okay, welcome, Kevin, our newest member.
Thank you.
Do you want to give a little background about yourself? For those of us that don't know.
Yeah, but I can if you'd like. I live in the town of Cortlandville. I've lived here my whole life, other than a brief period when I was getting hired by the City of Ithaca Fire Department. I used to be on the Cortlandville Zoning Board of Appeals, and then Ted Testa forced me to become a legislator. I did that for several years. And then the Cortlandville Fire Department has been very interested in the growth of the town of Cortlandville. And Trish just asked if I would consider being on the board. Leadership things changed in the county, and here I am.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
I don't see any other guests on here. Is that correct? No other guests joining in?
I don't see anyone.
Okay. Can we get everybody have a chance to read the meeting minutes first from the April meeting? If you're ready, we can make a motion to accept those minutes.
I'll move.
And second?
Amy, I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor of accepting the meeting minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Other than our welcome to our newest member, I don't have any other remarks. So I'll turn it over to Tricia.
Yeah, I just want to note that just a follow-up on the housekeeping for the meetings. The open meetings law now is going to the individual municipalities for determination whether you meet virtually or in person. Alex and I discussed these options as, I think there's definitely some of us that prefer the in-person meetings, but when we discussed it, we kind of concluded that with the price of fuel and with everybody's busy schedule, if we have short agendas, for right now, if we only have a few small things on the agenda, we felt that it makes more sense just to have a virtual meeting. But if we have longer agendas or larger GMLs on for the month, we'd prefer to have in person. So I'm open, and Alex and I are more than open to any suggestions or comments, but that's kind of what we felt like made more sense at this point.
I agree.
It sounds good.
Okay. And then secondly, just an update really quick on the comprehensive plan. I'm still in the process of working on the application for the Appalachian Regional Council grant in partnership with the Southern Tier 8 Regional Planning Board that we belong to. And I think since we last met, I'm also working with the Central Regional Planning Board out of Syracuse to submit a CFA application for local government. It's a Department of State application, grant application that would cover the other half of the cost for the comp plan. So I think it's a really good collaboration of the two planning boards that we belong to. And I think they'll kind of lend themselves to fit together pretty well. It's gonna, again, I think we talked about it a little bit last month. It'll be a long process. The grants will know more toward the end of this fall if we've been selected, but then it's gonna be a multi-year process. And I'll be keeping you guys posted as, hopefully if everybody's on board, you wouldn't mind being, the ultimate reviewing committee. I've got a kind of a lineup started of local municipal civil representatives from other agencies in and outside of the county that would partake in the process. But then I'd continuously be bringing it back to you guys for review.
Good.
But other than that, we're rocking and rolling. So
Mhm.
I'll let Alex take over.
Nice, simple one this time. This is a minor subdivision review for the purpose of subdividing an existing 1.194 acre parcel to transfer 0.2 acres to a neighboring 1.136 acre parcel. Property is described as 5055 and 5063 Bishop Hill Road, the town of Homer. It's zoned R residence. It's in the Aquifer Protection District, Area 4. And it is coming before us because it's within 500 feet of active farming operations within the Cortland County Consolidated Ag District. So basically what they're doing is there's two parcels and there's kind of a stream near to the boundary line, and they're just going to move the boundary line to the stream. It's pretty simple conceptually. So section 508A of the law requires a minimum lot size of 2.4 acres, which is pretty standard. Proposed lots, currently they're not big enough, and the proposed lots certainly aren't either. So they'll need an area variance for that, which is why we're reviewing it, and this isn't a return like many of the others are. 508B of the law requires a minimum width of 300 feet. They are both not that, and they weren't before either. So again, another area variance for that. In order to grant the area variances, they have to balance the benefit to be realized by the applicant against any potential detriment to the neighborhood or community. And then it appears the well and septic systems will remain on the respective properties. I would also assume that, though I try not to assume because of the stream. But because it's not specified, it's recommended the applicant just prove that to the town. And then Cortland County Health Department rules and regulations, minimum lot size. So if they were to do anything with those systems, they'll need a waiver request from environmental health. Finally, finally, the applicant has completed part 1 of the short environmental assessment form. I believe this might be in type 2 action, so they may not have needed to do that, but since they've done part 1, they can do part 2 and 3. So staff recommends approval of this application. The following contingencies: that the applicant apply for and obtain an area variance to gain relief from the minimum lot size requirements, that they apply for another area variance to gain relief from the minimum lot width requirement, that the town balance the benefit to be realized by the applicant against any potential detriment to the neighborhood community, that the applicant show the existing well and septic systems will remain solely on their respective properties, and compliance with seeker.
And motion to accept staff's recommendations.
I'll make that motion.
Chuck, how about a
This is
second?
Wendy. I'll second it.
Thank you. And discussion?
I like in your recommendation where your recommendations and you comment only if contingencies can be met. I like the way you word that.
Yeah, we rewarded that because of previous, we talked
Yeah.
about it before.
Yeah.
Looking up these parcels on the map, aerial views of them, they're nice and they don't look encroaching in any way. There's nice big front yard setbacks, and I didn't see the septic for the lower property. I'm assuming it's at the bottom there, but it seemed like there was you know, a nice division there that wasn't going to be an obstruction in any way. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any objections? Okay, so passed.
All right, then we had, I think 13, I counted, returns, a lot this month, but, you know, there was, I'm not gonna go through all of them. I'm gonna highlight, one of them, but if you have any questions, I'll happily go over any of them. I do want to mention one that almost was a full review. This one right here, DM3 of Cortland. It's the, I keep forgetting the name. It's the
Footy
ice cream
Freeze.
shop.
Yeah.
Say again?
Or Footy
What was it
Freeze?
called?
No,
No, Super Scoops, isn't it?
Super
Yeah,
Scoops.
yeah,
That's what it
No.
was.
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Yeah. So the Super Soup site, they're going to reopen it as an ice cream shop, and they were doing some site improvements. So initially, the zoning enforcement officer determined that a site plan review was needed, and after some back and forth with a couple different officials in the town, we determined that actually a site plan review wasn't needed, but we sent a, since it was referred to us, we just sent it back as a, you know, explaining why it's not needed and called it good there. So. Any other questions on any of these? Happy to.
Alex, the only one I question, and I guess it's personal because I live down the street. We're putting like $5 million into fixing up Clinton, another $5 million in fixing up Main Street as the main entrance of the city. And the variance for that shop on Clinton, I'm wondering if, I'm not going to say change it or anything like that, but maybe when you have main entrances to the city and it's the county seat on state routes, we may want to look at some of those area variances even, because if they allow something like that, whether they will or not, I don't know, but it kind of degrades the neighborhood, and hopefully the city planning will take that into account, because it really goes beyond what should be done with a building like that. I'm hoping the city variance people will look at that carefully. But I'm not going to ask you to change anything like that. But I think when you look at some of these right at the main drag, when you're putting that kind of money into fixing up the same applies to like Route 11 from Homer when they get that project going and all the stuff we're putting in the Clinton ad and some of these main drags we're trying to do. We might want to take a look at those more carefully once in a while. All right, that's it.
Alex, you can share, there was a little bit of history behind that one too. Chuck, because you're talking about the signs there on the storefront. Yeah, that was actually up already. It's already, Alex can give
Currently
the,
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's currently up, and Trish and I did go back and forth on whether this was going to be a full or a return. We ultimately decided to do a return, but we'll note that maybe we should. We'll take it further in a note. But yeah, basically what happened was they got a sign permit to put one sign up in, you know, you can see the regulations. I spelled them out within the regulations, and it looks like, you know, something happened where the occupant talked to the sign contractor and they just kind of started putting up signs. So obviously when they went to do their final inspection, this got brought up, so they've applied for this area variance. So
Yeah, I understand. That kind of stuff happens a lot. People get ahead of it, but at some point, I think people should make them take them down if they don't like what they are, you know? So those kind of just these main drags coming in, like say, like Clinton, Route 11, 13, some of those that really lead into the county seat do have some influence, just the way they look to a county overall. All right, that's my concern. All right, that's it.
yeah, we definitely appreciate that input too, Chuck. And we're hoping the city will be, follow up. We tried to be as strict as we could while not putting them in a bad place, by kind of really highlighting how out of compliance they are with what they did put up. So we'll see what this city comes back with too.
Were there any other questions on any of the other returns?
Alex, maybe you could also share the conversation about the novelties, the fireworks tent, with the city, because there was a little communication on that as well, just so to keep everybody in the loop.
Yeah. So this one comes every year, has for years. They set up there and they have to get a permit. But Bob Ray and I went back and forth on this one with you know, how we should go about it. And ultimately we decided for now a special use permit. But there's some, he's going to ask the city's planning board what they feel about, because there's a couple different ways you could go about this in the code. It's kind of ambiguous. So next year it may not be a special use permit. There may even be a way for it to be approved once, and as long as they do every year. But he's going to ask the city planning board on their own code. So. Or planning commission, I think they're called.
They might get a
That-
little carried away if it's just granted for permanency, I would think.
It might be a bit of a stretch. It's
Yeah,
possible.
I don't know.
Is it a special use because like a temporary tent type thing? Is that what the reason is?
Yep.
Because they've had this before, I know, with like the hospital wanted to have a tent set up one time to have a reception in, and they had to go through like a 20 or 30-day process. They wanted to do up the next week and that kind of stuff. And some other places like, I assume on Tompkins Street, if the Alumni House wants to have a big event, or 1890 House with temporary tents, I assume a long special permit process may impede some of that planning that they'd have to do. So maybe the city should be looking at it.
I have a question. Why is this different than the ones they put out in front of like Walmart and Cortland and stuff like that?
It wouldn't be.
So they would have to apply as well then, right?
Well, Walmart and Cortlands is in Cortlandville, so they have a different code they're following.
Okay.
So I would have to read through and see what their code says. There could be like an administrative process for them, but it would be the exact same thing. It's just a matter of if someone complained, which would cause a code enforcement officer to go out and make them get a permit or not.
Okay.
And the only other thing, Alex, that you might want to share is the conversation with Pat Snyder and Homer about manufactured homes.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of a big one. I think there's a return in here about that too. Let's see. This is it. Yes. So little known, and I found this out, I think from Chris Eastman at the Department of State when we did those trainings. I think we found out about it. There is a New York executive law that states that a manufactured home affixed to a permanent foundation with identical standards is supposed to be treated as a single family dwelling for zoning purposes. So most, if not all, of the codes I've seen around here separate them out and require special things for manufactured homes, but by this state law, they can't do that. So I've started to kind of just remind people that this is a law and show them that it is. It didn't really get a lot of fanfare, but yeah, so I'm just starting to disseminate that, and as people change their codes around, maybe they'll conform to it. Hasn't become a problem yet. But-
Yeah, I think a lot of the codes in the years I worked on, almost all the towns have mobile home ordinances where they won't allow a mobile home without being in a mobile home park and stuff like that, which they can't be considered that anymore. It's been that way in the code for a while now. So a lot of those ordinances don't work. A lot of towns have them.
I don't think I can't think of a single town off the top of my head right now that doesn't have something like that. So I'm sure there are, but most of them.
Does that refer to a mobile home? It's got to be on a regular basement style foundation, or just the slabs you put them on?
It's got to be fixed to a permanent foundation.
One way or another, they all are, whether they're a slab or a foundation wall.
Well, there's a discrepancy in how the laws work with the mobile homes. What happens, the HUD has put out a permanent mobile foundation ordinance that most of the ones people go in don't actually meet that because they have to be below frost line in order to do that. So you could question that if it's going on a slab, I think, if you want to say it met HUD requirement. However, a lot of
The HUD
people sign
requirement
off on
only
it
has a
anyhow.
thickened slab. Yeah, the HUD requirement just has a thickened slab with perimeter insulation.
Yeah, you can also do it that way, as long as you're insulating the crawl space underneath or a slab, but it has to be insulated underneath also. So in other words, you can't have a cold underneath the unit. You have to have it
Right,
that are insulated, and it's got to
Yeah.
be heated space to do it. So a lot of them aren't done that way, so it becomes a little tricky.
It'll be interesting to see how that progresses. Let's pick it up. But I think that was, right, Alex, I think that was most of the conversations that were part of these returns. But
Yeah.
Homer had a lot of stuff come through.
Yes, they did. Town and village.
Okay, well, if nobody else has any comments on those returns, we'll just announce our next meeting date unless anybody else has anything to say. Our next meeting date will be June 15th. Based on how many applications we have, whether we'll be in person or not, you shall let us know.
And again, if anybody has a problem with that or, prefers a different setup, by all means, just reach out to Alex or I. We're always open for suggestions. We just felt that that was most, just a little bit more accommodating for those of you at 6:30 to travel into town for a 20-minute meeting.
No, I think it's prudent, and you guys are using good judgment in that regard. Obviously, if there's a contentious issue or a major issue, we should probably meet in person,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. About a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn this meeting.
Okay.
I'll second it, Amy.
All right.
Okay, we'll see you all next June 15th then.
Okay, cheers.
Thank you.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Everyone.
Everyone,
Thank you.
All right, everyone.
have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.